What is happening, my good people? Well, let's get the light on so you can see me a lot better. All right, there we go. What is happening, my good people? How are you? How's it going? What is the latest and greatest? Yes, another live stream Wednesday, March the 19th in the year of our Lord 2025. Glad to be here yet again. And for those out there, especially in the Northeast like I am, and I'll talk about it later on in the live stream, but I will say this. We are on the eve of spring, which means we can maybe not put away the bubble jackets and the parkas just yet, or maybe even the skull caps, the gloves, the scarves, etc. But warmer days are coming. We already know that it gets dark around 7:30, which is certainly something that we could all welcome with open arms. And on top of all that, knowing that we're going to have days where we'll take out the shorts, a little bit down the road with the tank tops, okay? But the short sleeve shirts, even the flip-flops, sandals, etc., those days are coming. So on the eve of spring, and even though it's not official just yet, but warmer days are on the horizon. And what's on the horizon now is the latest live stream here as I talk about what's happening in the world of sports. And there is quite a bit. I'm going to hit a few topics, including spring. But I do want to say for those who are hopping on board, please work the chat room. You know that whatever thoughts that you have, share them with me. I'll post them on the screen. We'll have a little back and forth banter with what is happening, with what it is that I'm saying, or whatever it is on your mind and what's going on in the world of sports. That's number one. Number two, for those who are watching the replay, you are not forgotten. You will not be discounted. Please leave a comment. I'll follow up afterwards. This will be in the archives here on YouTube. So for those who missed out, or if they are watching the replay and look at what it is that I'm saying, it's a little bit off base, or out of character, or what's going on, leave a comment. I'll follow up. We'll go back and forth there, even once this is in the archives, and for those who are going to consume this after the fact. But with those two things out of the way, what is happening in the world of sports? I'm going to touch on a few things here. Of course, there's a podcast tomorrow, which you definitely will want to peep as far as getting my Final Four, as the bracket will be filled out, and I haven't filled it out just yet. We'll talk about that, what's happening in the NBA, NHL. Of course, in baseball, which I'm going to touch on here, is the Dodgers are 2-0. Now they're just 160 wins away from a complete regular season sweep. So we'll have some fun with that. And also, at the very end of this live stream for next week, you won't want to miss out what I'm going to bring up then. And it's something that I have not done in the now over 7 years of this podcast, that I'm actually going to include in this live stream, exclusively on this live stream. And maybe I'll piggyback it into the podcast the next day. But right now, as of right this second, I have some big plans for next Wednesday's live stream. So that's going to come at the back end here. So you don't want to miss that. But for starters, let's get right to it. I'm going to start with baseball. I know it's all about the tournament. I know it's all about the March Madness and everything that's going to transpire, especially tomorrow. And I understand we have 2 playing games tonight, so we could maybe even touch on that a little bit. Meaning the Texas Xavier game is going to be a lot more intriguing than the first game would be, so we could talk about that for what it's worth. But I want to start with the baseball, because now that the season is officially here, and we understand that it is not truly an opening day until we get to a week from tomorrow, where we'll have all the pomp and circumstance, the curtain raised on the 2025 season. We'll get into all that's going to take place with the baseball season next week. But for right this very second, the Dodgers, who had the 2 games in Tokyo, and today completed that 2-game sweep where you had rookie Sasaki, although he walked 5, but certainly showed his brilliance there with some of his masterful pitches, topping out at 101 on the radar gun. He is the 23-year-old that the Dodgers procured this offseason. Didn't pay a lot of money because he is, I don't want to say underage, but underage from a professional standpoint, where if you recall last year when the Dodgers signed Yoshinobu Yamamoto, they gave him that 12-year, $325 million contract, is because he had service time in Japan, and because he was of a certain age, he was able to bankroll and get himself a big ransom when it comes to his contract, where Sasaki only had a couple of years in professional ball in Japan and was unable to get that long-term, big-time deal, but he showed his skills there, albeit a little bit erratic with the 5 walks, but he only pitched 3 innings, so it's not as if you got a situation where Yamamoto yesterday pitched 5 innings and was able to show the world and show, of course, his fellow countrymen and women what he is all about. But for the Dodgers, 2-0, and without Mookie Betts and without Freddie Freeman, I mean, what more can you say? They win 4-1 yesterday. They win 6-3 today. And now that they're off and running here, where they'll get a respite before they have their home opener, which is, again, a week from tomorrow, where they'll have the Detroit Tigers of all teams. So it's not as if they're going to have the San Francisco Giants or another divisional foe, maybe even the Padres for that matter, or let's say the Cardinals or another team in the National League. No, it's the Detroit Tigers, but that's the world we live in when it comes to interleague. And with the imbalance of the teams in each league, 15 and 15, you know there's always going to be at least one series that's going to have a showcase of 2 teams that are going to represent one in the AL and NL. But the Dodgers, what more can you say? They are a team that I don't even want to say they're going to be on a mission, because last year they were on a mission knowing that they had the bullseye on their back, knowing that they brought in Shohei Ohtani and the aforementioned Yamamoto, and they still went to a World Series and won in 5 games, to where now they reloaded to the point where they bring in more starting pitching, the aforementioned Sasaki, as well as Blake Snell, and then you put Tyler Glass now, and you put guys of that ilk to a rotation which is loaded, as well as their bullpen, which we know is stacked. And there's a team that in Vegas, their over-under win total number was 104.5, meaning that if you pick the over, they would have to get at least 105. And, of course, you pick the under, they would have to be anything below that. Now, who knows what this team is going to go through throughout the course of the regular season? Is it going to be boredom? Are they going to show signs of, oh, let's just get to October? Now, the good thing is that they have the 3 guys at the top, meaning Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman, that have been down this road before. They know what a long season is like. And remember, last year they got off to a bit of a sluggish start, but once they kicked it into high gear, obviously the second half, it seemed as if they had nothing to play for, because despite the fact that the Padres, as well as the Arizona Diamondbacks, were flirting and maybe got as close to within 3 games, but then they pulled away, and it was a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers won another NL West, and then obviously, as we all know what happened there in October. But is this going to be a team that's going to have their moments to where they are just going to be a bore? It's going to be a yawn. It's going to be a slog to get through this regular season, because we all know it is a marathon. And even with the Dodgers as stocked and as loaded as they are, will they have moments? And I'm sure they're going to have their moments where they're going to lose whatever, 5 of 7, or have a stretch where they're going to lose 13 of 17. It happens with everybody. Now, do you expect that to happen, or are they going to be a juggernaut throughout the whole year where they could win 2/3 of their games, which means that they have to go 108 and 54, and we've seen that in the past. In fact, we actually saw a Dodger team, if you recall, in 2021. They went 106 and 56, and they didn't even win the division, because the Giants were 1 game better in 2021, if you recall, and the Dodgers didn't get to a World Series that year. We understand that they lost in the National League Championship Series to the Braves that year, and then the Braves won the whole thing. But will the Dodgers be a team that are going to be a juggernaut all year and win, let's say, in upwards of 105, 108, 110? Will they even flirt with 116? Which could be a storyline here, and 116 being the record held by the Seattle Mariners of 2001, which, of course, that Mariner team didn't even get to a World Series, let alone win it. But will it be more of the Dodgers just steamrolling through the National League and through Major League Baseball to a top record that we have not seen in quite some time? Or will they have those moments where, yeah, they'll get up to a hot start, but then as you get into June, they go through a month where they're, let's say, for them, 18 and 10, which still a lot of teams in Major League Baseball will take. But we would think that this Dodger team is probably going to get a lot of 19 and 9s, or, and that's still just a game better than 18 and 7. You get my point. Who knows? They may have a 21 and 7 month. They may have a 23 and 5 month. Who knows? Because that's how big time this team is and how they just have a ton of depth. They have a ton of talent, and the team knows how to win. So for a Dodger team that maybe not as much pressure this year, despite the fact that the players that they brought in than last year, because once they brought in Ohtani and his big contract and then Yamamoto, everybody thought, oh, well, Dodgers, they're going to just cruise to a World Series. And in essence, they pretty much did. When you think about it, now they had to sweat into the divisional series against the Padres. Remember, they were down 2-1 before they came back and won that series. And then, obviously, they pretty much disposed the Mets, even though it was tied at 1 before they came to New York and had a 3-1 series lead against the Metropolitans. And then we saw what happened in the World Series. But I think this Dodger team, they're going to have a monster year. I think they're going to be well north of the 104.5. Now, even with big injuries, because remember last year, Mookie Betts, he was on the shelf for quite some time, and they still were able to win a division. Now, they would have to be relatively healthy in order for them to get above 104.5. That you'd have to say without any ifs, ands, buts, or maybes about it. But I think that the Dodgers, considering they finally got an 162-game season in which they won a World Series, which they hadn't done since 1988, prior to last year. And I understand the year of the pandemic, remember 60 games, they did win a title, and it does count. But after last year and being able to now have that under their belts, they know that, not to say that this is going to be an easy year, not to say that this is going to be a cakewalk, not to say that they can put their feet up on the 4th of July and cruise into October. But I really, truly believe that with Dave Roberts, with the new contract that he has, and a lot of the pressure off of him after what had transpired since they won that World Series in 2020, losing to the Braves in 6 games in an LCS. The following year, losing in the divisional series. And then the year after that, they also lost in the division series to the Diamondbacks, and when they got swept. And if you recall, in 2022, they didn't even make it to the championship series because the Padres beat them in the division series in 4 games. So for them to get to last year and a lot of pressure on Dave Roberts, that's why winning that World Series lifts the 10,000-pound piano off of their backs. And not to say that there is no pressure on the Dodgers to win this year. That's not to say that there aren't expectations to where it's pretty much World Series sweep or bust, like I said last year, or even now that they're 2-0, is it 162-0 or bust? Of course, that is not going to be the case. But this is the team that is going to, you would think, have not just a big regular season, not have an enormous regular season. They're going to have a monster regular season. I get it. Health is a key contributing factor in order for them to get to that point to where they're going to challenge the Mariners' 116 and 46 record, or even the 98 Yankees, who are 114 and 48, if you recall. So those are records that I'm sure the Dodgers are going to be looking at. And I'm bringing this up now. I get it, 32 games in, and we could talk about how they've gotten off to a good start. And the Cubs, on the other hand, listen, their offense is a far cry from the World Series team that they had in 2016, where they had Javier Baez and Kyle Schwarber and Anthony Rizzo and going down the line with that team. Chris Bryant, that had a big offensive team. This is not the Ian Happs of the world and Dansby Swanson, although good players, but they are not going to be confused with the 27 Yankees being murderers row. So, all right, 2 games in, beat up on the Cubs, although there's some expectations in the Windy City for them to maybe even win a division, but they're certainly not going to hang lineup-wise or even roster-wise to a Dodger team, as I've said all along here, that is just stacked and unlike any in the sport as of right this moment. And I'm talking about roster from 1 to 26. I'm not talking about just their lineup, because their lineup, although they have professional hitters, and even without Betts and Freeman, they were still able to put up 10 runs into 2 games, which on average 5 runs a game you would take even without those guys in the lineup. So imagine with them in the lineup. But with that being said, I think that this Dodger team, not to say they're going to challenge the 98 Yankee record or even the Mariner record. I can't say that right this very second, but I will say that they're going to have, I would think, anywhere between 105 and 110 wins when it's all said and done. And who knows? Let's say if they get off to that type of start to where we're at the All-Star break, 95 games in, and they're 62-33. Now, you still have another, 67 games to play after that. So there's still a good chunk of the season left to go. But even 62-33, that's not going to guarantee them. They're going to get to 100 and well over that, you would think. But I really feel like if they're going to get to challenge that record, they would have to almost go 69 and what would that be? 26. So they would have to be 40 plus games over 500, maybe even 50 when you get close to it, or 45 in this case, because let's say even if there was 70-25, which I understand that's a round number, but this Dodger team, again, they are going to be, I would think, just as hungry to match what they did last year and to be called one of the all-time great teams, as we've seen here over the years, whether it is the 98 Yanks, whether it is even these big red machine of the 70s. And in 76, they were 108-54 when they swept the Yankees that year. Or if you even want to throw in, let's say, a team like the 86 Mets or the 84 Tigers, who got up to that tremendous start. Remember, they were 35-5. Can the Dodgers even equal that? Now, that's something that I'm sure they could shoot for. Now, granted that we're living in the day of 2025 where the Dodger team is not thinking about what the 84 Tigers have done. But guys like myself who could bring that up, especially if they get off to that type of start to where they're, let's say they're 17-3, and the next thing you know, they're 30-4. Now, can they challenge the Tigers at that point? Absolutely, because they can win 5 or 6 games and get to them to that 35-5 mark. But this is what the beauty of baseball. If it is a long season, who knows what's going to happen here right out of the gate. Now they have the Tigers coming in, who the Tigers had a very good end to their season and showed that they belonged in the postseason by sweeping the Houston Astros and then pushing the Guardians to 5 games in the division series. So I'm sure the Tigers are going to be up for the challenge. And with Tarek Skubal, that will, I'm sure, toe the rubber there on opening day in Los Angeles against the defending world champions. That could be a very interesting game that I believe is going to be on ESPN as well. So the whole country will be watching on whether or not the Tigers could, I don't want to say bounce back, but they could certainly be a team that a lot of people could look out for, considering how they finished and with the reigning Cy Young in the American League that will pitch that afternoon or into the evening. We will certainly get a good barometer on whether or not the Tigers will be up for the challenge, knowing that the Dodgers, the raising of the World Series flag, the ring ceremony, et cetera, and everything that's going to surround that day when the season begins a week from tomorrow. So that's what we got with the Dodgers. More on that tomorrow with the podcast. Of course, Apple, Spotify. You can go to the website, jreels.com, as well as the YouTube channel at jreels to get the podcast, whether you'd like it in visual form or in audio form. Either way, you know I got you covered when it comes to what's happening in the world of sports. All right, now let me move it along here. The next thing I want to discuss is North Carolina. And last night, did they silence the critics? Well, if you listen to the podcast on Monday, and I talked about how North Carolina was undeserving of qualifying and even making it into the first 4 of this tournament, and they went up against a team that has the pedigree and it won San Diego State, but the Aztecs had no shot. And the only reason why I was pulling for the Aztecs is because, and there's no knock on North Carolina, I don't care about them. Yes, we understand that they're a blue blood. Yes, we understand that they're a school that is well represented throughout the course of the college basketball history. But just to be a contrarian, I was looking at San Diego State to throw maybe not much of an upset, but for them to go ahead and win and knock out North Carolina to show the selection committee that they made an egregious error by putting them into the tournament. And one of the guys that was part of the discussion, although he wasn't in the room, was the North Carolina AD, Bubba Cunningham. And it has been on record that he was not part of the selection on whether or not North Carolina should have been one of the first 4. But I'm sure there had to be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's like, hey, guys, I know Carolina, they may not deserve it, but look at their strength of schedule. And despite the fact they only had 1 win against a team that is of note, and that being UCLA. And even though they beat American along the way, where American will play in the first game there tonight before Texas and Xavier to get those final couple of matchups in so they could qualify to be a part of the Final 64, in which the tournament will begin tomorrow, as we all know. But for North Carolina to come out firing big time, they let as many as 40 points in the game. RJ Davis had a monster game, 6 for 6 from 3, something that we haven't seen in the tournament, to be perfect from behind the arc. And they just blew the doors off of the Aztecs. And now, I'm sure at least for today, showed the basketball or college basketball landscape that they do belong, and that we are the ones that have to be the laughingstock and not them, as far as showing us that they're a team not only of pedigree, but also of reputation, and also one that, despite the fact that they had a bad year for North Carolina, that here they are, part of the Final 64, and they're going to play Ole Miss on Friday. So they have a couple of days to exhale before they rally the troops and play there in their region on Friday afternoon, I believe is the game. So, yeah, they shut me up. They shut up a ton of people, which now begs the question whether or not the Tar Heels have a run in them. Now, can they get to a Sweet 16? When I say a run, I'm not saying a run to a Final Four, because I don't think they're going to go that far. But with Ole Miss, a team that has played some big-time games this year, especially in the SEC, which by far this year has been the best conference, not only for college football, but even more so for college basketball, as they have 14 teams representing from that conference. But a lot of people think that they could get by Ole Miss and then see where they go from there. Now, I don't have the bracket in front of me just yet. Maybe I should have pulled that up prior to the start of this. J-Reels, I would have been very smart. But when we take a look at the bracket, and maybe, you know what, I'll plug this in and pull it up here for everybody to see. And I know we got one person that's on in the chat room here. So as I get ready to bring this up on screen, I'll share it for everybody to see. Now, let me just pull this up. Wait, ESPN. All right, let's go there. Let's drag this here. Let's get the bracket. So for North Carolina, do they have a run in them? That's the question that we want to discuss. I'm going to say this. I think they could beat Ole Miss. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And I think that having the extra day is also going to help them, because not only do they have a game under their belt, but now they have a couple of days to not necessarily read the press clippings or to even bask in it. And that could also be a danger too, because for them to think that, all right, win the tournament, now it's going to be smooth sailing. Can't say that right just yet. But you do have to give them credit from the standpoint of not only just winning the game there last night, but also knowing that they do have a couple of days to kind of regroup and focus in on the task at hand, and that's beating Ole Miss. And for them to, yes, I'm still pulling this up. Here we go. As I'm still looking at Carolina as a team that even if they were to win that game, and then chances are they will go up against Iowa State, who, as we all know, is a very good team. But, and now let's see, let's share now that this is up and running. For North Carolina, how I look at it is that, of course, they're going to take this one game at a time. That's going to be the approach, as we know. And the also added thing of note for the Tar Heels is that because they don't have to wait till Friday, let me see the time of that game, 4:05 in the afternoon, it gives them an extra day just to game plan. They don't have to go right into the cauldron of travel. Let's say if they travel today and had the game tomorrow, that may be a little bit too much. I'm sure if they didn't leave from Dayton yesterday, I'm sure they're probably in transit right now. And for North Carolina, I think this is a situation where they can win this one game. I don't know if they're going to be able to win the next. And to me, that's the bottom line. Yeah, let me share my screen here. Slides. No, it's not really a slide, is it? No. So my computer, yes, upload. We know that. Do you see anything yet? No, it's not showing up. All right, it's taking forever here. Of course, my technology. Let's try that one more time, people. My apologies here. Share screen. Yep, we know that. And right here, boom, share. I'm sure you're going to see that momentarily. Right. And I don't know how close you're going to get to see, but right here in North Carolina, I don't know if I could zoom in on that. Here's the game. So, yeah, here's what you have. Tar Heels and Ole Miss. If you don't see that. I did click on that. I don't know if it's not showing. All right, so let me go back. Click off of that. Oh, I see that. Yeah, it's only showing that one thing. All right, so here's your Ole Miss, North Carolina. How I look at it again, just because they won the one game doesn't mean they're going to have that magical run like Syracuse did many years ago under Jim Boeheim. They got to a regional final, and I know Tom Izzo did the same. Maybe got to a regional semi. But sometimes when you come out of this first four scenario, now you have some gas in your tank. Now you're able to get rolling. And I understand North Carolina as an 11. It's not as if they're a 16 and they got to go up against a 1 seed where they're going to be a sacrificial lamb to whomever it is that they're going to play in their bracket. But for the Tar Heels, and yes, I get it that they played a monster schedule and they lost to a lot of big-time teams, and quite a few of them in the SEC, I might add. With Clemson, I know they were able to beat them early on this year, and a bunch of other teams. Obviously, Duke beat them 3 times. But I'm not going to all of a sudden think that the Tar Heels are just going to magically have this run to a Sweet 16 and beyond. I don't think so. I think they could beat Ole Miss, and I'll even go as far as saying that they will beat Ole Miss. But anything after that, now Iowa State, Lipscomb. Now Lipscomb has Cinderella and the glass slipper fits, then all bets are off. Because at that point, then I could see North Carolina beating Lipscomb. But if they're going to go up against Iowa State, and I'm sure Iowa State's going to think that, oh, well, if we have North Carolina, if they're going to be on our radar, we know that they're going to be coming at us full throttle and full steam ahead. So getting a little bit ahead of myself, but if we look at the weekend and look at these 2 games that North Carolina are going to go up against, and right, we got to deal with it one game at a time. But I think that they will actually beat the Ole Miss Running Rebels and then have a shot for them to get to a Sweet 16 there come Sunday afternoon. But I don't think they're going to have a deep run in them. I don't look at this team as the team that we saw there 3 years ago, where obviously they were a lot more stout when they went all the way to a championship game before losing to Kansas there, if you recall. So let me stop my screen here. So now as you get back to yours truly, I don't know if that happened. Let me one more time. There we go. So that's what you have with the tournament. And tomorrow I'll get into all of what's going to happen with the situation regarding the tournament from top to bottom, a deal that a lot of people, I'm sure they've already put in their brackets. I did not put mine in just yet. And not that I'm a gambling man by any stretch, this is just for fun. But all I know is this tournament, I can give you a quick overview. I know you have some formidable 1 seeds. There's a lot of people that are picking 3 1 seeds coming out. And I know when you pick all 1 seeds, it's not a lot of fun because you know there's going to be an upset along the way. And granted, the last time you had 4 1 seeds make it to the Final Four, you have to go back to 2008. And that was the year where Kansas beat Memphis in that final, if you recall, the Mario Chalmers shot. So to think, you got to go back now 17 years where you got all 1 seeds make it to the Final Four. And ironically, that was also in San Antonio. But do I think that's going to happen here? I think it could happen, but I can't say that. I mean, it's easy to go chalk. It's easy to pick the 1 seeds or even, I want to be different. I'm going to pick a 2 seed. That's not being different. If you're going to pick Michigan State, or if you think St. John's going to upset Florida, which I think that would be a real good take if you want to switch it up a little bit. But I think there's always going to be 1 team that's going to come out of the woodwork. There's going to be 1 upset. And maybe if they don't even get to a Final Four, but maybe a regional final. But the whole exercise of doing this is that you want to be a little bit different. You don't want to just pick 1s and 2 seeds and then just hope for the best or hope to see if they will get there. No, you want to have a little fun. You want it to be intriguing to the point where, all right, I'm going to pick Arizona to get to a Final Four. That's going on a limb. And granted, they're a 4 seed. It's not as if they're a 6, 7, or 8 seed. But then again, how many 6, 7, or 8 seeds other than 2 years ago when you had FIU and Miami go deep? And that was when UConn, remember, UConn was a 4 seed that year when they won the first of their 2 back-to-back titles. But and listen, I am not going to sit here and say that, oh, it's a foregone conclusion that's Duke, Florida, Houston, and Auburn. They're going to be a Final Four. I mean, please. Is that really going out on a limb? I mean, unless you have big-time money, and even then, if you have big-time money on this bracket, whatever it is, office pools, or if you're going to submit this to the ESPN challenge, and not that I'm a shill for ESPN, but you see it all over the place. And all I can say is that that's not any fun. You want to have a team that maybe could be that dark horse, or the team that is certainly going in with a lot of momentum that could go on that deep run, that could get to a Final Four. That's where you have a little bit of fun here, not just taking 1 seeds, or I got 3 1 seeds and 1 2 seed, or I got 2 1 seeds and 2 2 seeds. I mean, come on. That's really no big time effort, or that's not really putting a lot of thought into your bracket. And right, this could be the one year you get all 4 1 seeds that could represent there in the Final Four. But to have this type of exercise, or to have the banter of talking about how the madness, which usually is in March with this tournament, there's always going to be that one team that's going to blow up a bracket, or it's going to knock out a 1 seed. I will say this: if there's 1 seed that I think that could fall, meaning the first 1 seed, and it's not going to happen here in these 1/16 matchups, which I know we've seen here over the last couple of years, but the one team that would scare me a little bit is Houston. Because Houston, although very reputable, we know the type of team that they have, defensive-oriented, intensity, but they can have trouble scoring from time to time. And the one drawback from that 1 seed is that if you are in a game where not necessarily it's a street fight, because that's the type of game that they want. They want to play in a phone booth. They want to be smothering defensively and then get their points in transition, because in the half court, yeah, they're a little bit compromised. But when you have a scenario where, let's say, they're going to go up against a team, let me pull who they're going to have on their side of the bracket. Now, chances are they may have Houston play Tennessee, which are mirror images of one another when it comes to 2 teams that don't really have a ton of scoring on their roster. But let's just say, for instance, now Illinois. Now, Illinois is a team that's very up and down. They could blow out a team by 20, but then they could also lose by 20. Just look at their games this year. Or even Kentucky, for that matter. Now, it's not a vintage Kentucky team, but you know, they'll be able to score even against a team like Houston, despite the fact that they're going to do their best to bottle them up. But I think Houston is the one team, because we know Duke can score, we know Auburn can score, and obviously you have a situation where out of all the 1 seeds, Florida is probably the one that can outscore anybody. So, and maybe is the best team, despite the fact that they're not ranked number 1 overall. Auburn is, but you could certainly argue that Florida could be the number 1 seed overall in this tournament. In fact, they actually beat Auburn this year in Auburn. So I see Houston being out of all the 1 seeds. That could be the one team that I would be concerned about them not getting to a Final Four, where Florida, obviously they can. And as I say, Houston cannot, but Florida can, as well as Duke and Auburn. And if you listen to the podcast on Monday before I pivot, I look at these regions, these brackets, and it goes in this order. The West bracket, by far, is the most challenging, with Florida, St. John's, UConn, Missouri, who could score. Maryland is very good. You even want to throw in Kansas, just based on their pedigree. Arkansas with Calipari, who knows his way around the tournament, although he's been ousted quite badly as a 2 seed, losing to 15 seeded teams. But I look at that region as the toughest by far. The South is the second hardest, if you ask me, with Auburn and with Michigan State. A lot of people think that Tom Izzo is going to have a date in the Final Four to get his Spartan team there. And we know that this is the 25th anniversary of their championship title there in 2000 with Mateen Cleaves. A lot of people look at Iowa State, as we talked about, Michigan, who is coming in hot as a conference champion. And then we all know about Auburn and what they're able to do. And then the Midwest and the Duke, I think Duke has the easiest run to a Final Four. Now, granted, Alabama could score, but Alabama, do you trust 100%? Listen, I understand we're a Final Four team, but at the same time, with Cooper Flagg and even with his injury, you have to wonder whether or not is he going to be 100%. We know that that ankle's probably going to get taped, and he's going to be a guy that's going to have a spotlight on him, considering that he's going to be a one and done. He's going to go on to the pros. And there's even some argument on whether or not they should actually play him in the 116 game, just rest him, and then play him there on Sunday when the likelihood of them playing either Mississippi State or Baylor. And that would be an interesting matchup with Baylor, because I know Baylor would want to run and gun a little bit. But with the Blue Devils, we know that they're a team that a lot of people are looking at, especially with the All-American player in Cooper Flagg and the All-Americans, Mark Sears, Alabama, as well as Janai Broome. They're from Auburn. You also have the kid from Florida, Walter Clayton Jr., as well as the kid from Purdue, also Braden Smith, I believe I was going to say. I was actually going to think of another Purdue player. But those are your All-Americans, their first team in the country. But with Duke and the one seeds, as we talked about, and with the regions, I think Duke has the easiest path, followed by Houston as a one seed, despite the fact I think they could be the first one to fall. And then the toughest will be the West region with Florida and then Auburn in the South. That rounds out your top seeds, or I should say that rounds out the top toughest to least toughest there when it comes to the four regions. And more on that tomorrow. I have my Final Four on the podcast. I will get into, of course, the games there tonight where American, and we would think that American would be a team considering that, not that I've seen them play this year. So listen, full transparency, I am not going to sit here and even project that American is going to beat Mount St. Mary tonight and move on into the tournament, because I have not watched them play all year. I understand that North Carolina beat them earlier this year, but it's not as if that game was on my radar. But the Texas Xavier game was an interesting one, because a lot of people thought Texas shouldn't have made it into the tournament. And I guess I'll round it out here. Although Xavier, Big East, I'm going to pull for them. But Texas, who has not had good moments in the tournament, as you know, it's been a far cry from when they made it to the Final Four, dating back to 2003, if you recall. But either one of those two teams, I will pick Xavier. But a lot of people thought Texas shouldn't have even been in the scenario, similar to North Carolina, because they were 6-12 in their conference. They had lost 15 games overall, which for teams to make it into the play-in at 15, that's quite high. And they only had 7 wins against quad 1 and quad 2 opponents, where you had Ohio State, Indiana, and Boise State, respectively, had 9 and 8 games against quad 1 and quad 2 opponents. So Texas could have been a team that would have been home or in the NIT, but here they are with a shot to advance if they do beat Xavier tonight. So that's what you have there with the college basketball. And now as I pivot here, nothing really else that's happening. NBA's been National Hockey League, I know Ovechkin, So you have that. I talked about the baseball to start us off with the Dodgers, and I'll talk more about the Dodgers tomorrow, as the baseball season isn't really in full swing or isn't underway. I get it, because it was played a continent away. Is it officially here? Yes, it is. But once we get to next Thursday, that's when it's really going to be all about the smell of the green grass. Although there'll be a chill in the air, especially in the Northeast, but you get the walking out of the tunnel and you see the beautiful green grass. You get the smell of mustard and hot dogs and beer and everything that entails about going into a baseball stadium, which is unlike anything else. I understand when you get to an arena for hockey or basketball, you still get that coming out of the tunnel and you see the ice, you see the court, or football. But baseball just has a whole different smell, feel to it. To me, unlike any of the other sports, and I get it, baseball now is a regional sport. Not too many young folk are into baseball like yours truly, obviously me being a middle-aged person. But with that being said, baseball we'll talk more about next week, and I have an interesting programming note when it comes to the live stream at the tail end of this, so you won't want to miss out on that. For next week's live stream, I'm going to dedicate it to one thing and one thing only. So there's your hint. If anybody wants to throw that in the chat to figure out what it is, if you didn't tune in earlier when I mentioned that, then please feel free. And again, for those that are watching on the replay, anything I said here over the course of the first 41 minutes was a little bit outlandish or just out of whack, please leave those in the comments. I encourage it. And for the two that are on board, I encourage you to leave a comment as well. So share your thoughts. I'll post it on screen as you've seen before in previous live streams and chats such as this. Now, one of the things I like to talk about here on the live stream is I take a big deep breath and exhale. Yes, I want it to be about what it is that I love, what it is I talked about, sports. But I like to close out and switch it up a little bit when it comes to a live stream to talk about whether it's something, whether it be a current event or anything that's happening in our lives. And not to say that I know what's going on in your life and vice versa, but I want to have an element of humanity. And not to say it's about humanity like giving. And I guess in my way, I'm giving via this platform. So maybe there is a bit of humanity in this aspect, but obviously it's not all about sports. Yes, we can talk about the toy department all we want, and it's fun, and I understand that's why you're here to listen to my thoughts on what's happening throughout the sports landscape. But I got to throw in a little bit of a wrinkle. I got to bring up something. And in the past, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I talked about Ash Wednesday. What are you going to give up for Lent? Last week, I can't recall what I brought up off the top of my head. But I figured that the latter part, and even though these live streams are an hour, and hopefully as this continues to gain traction and more people jump on board, that I'll go as far as an hour and 10, hour and 15, hour and a half. Hey, listen, if I had 20 people in the chat or 50 or 100, let's say if it even gets to that point, and I'm on for 2 hours, so be it. I'll do that. So the more the merrier, as the old saying goes. But yeah, I do want to throw in something a little bit different, something that at least could be a bit of a brain teaser. So as I exhale, and spring is officially tomorrow, as we're now spring eve, and it's a beautiful day here in the Northeast. I think the temperature, let me see if I pull that up real quick. I'll take a guess what's maybe 60 degrees. All right, it's 57 degrees. All right, maybe you can't just wear a T-shirt and shorts just yet. Or, all right, you can wear a sweatshirt, which is fine. Light jacket, absolutely. As I believe the temperature is supposed to be 62 degrees as the high here in New York City. But with spring just about here, and we could put away the doldrums of, which usually goes by pretty quick, a long winter. And the reason why I say long, because obviously the days are longer. It gets dark at 5 or even earlier than that. And you're just trying to just gut your way through the months of January, February, and in the early part of March until we turn the clocks up. And then now here we are, a day away from spring. So now, as I bring that up, I'm just curious to know, what is it about spring that you're looking forward to? Do you have a trip planned? Do you have something big that you're trying to achieve? Is there anything that you know that once the calendar turns to a new season, and here we are, like I said, less than 24 hours away, and knowing that April is now 12 days away, is there anything that's been percolating in the brain that you've wanted to do, that you've always wanted to do, go away, start gardening, who knows, whatever it is? And I only bring that up because I am curious. I would like to know, and it's something to share back and forth, which I think would be a little bit fun. And with me right now, as much as I would love to take a trip, and of course, because I'm doing this full time and trying to navigate finances and to, of course, channel whatever passive income through these platforms that I could do, and that I could certainly put myself in a position to where not only the house bills are paid, but I could go on a little sojourn somewhere with the wife to get out of the hustle and bustle of New York City and go somewhere warm, which would be great. And that would be the objective, to do so between now and I would say maybe May 1st. Not that that's etched in stone, That's just something that I would love to do, but I can't say as of right this second that that's going to happen. But really, with this coming spring is, to me, to keep pushing the podcast, to getting out there a little bit more, because I know that the wintertime does become a psychological and even spiritual slog. And I understand that's no excuse, because I should still do whatever it is that I'm doing, even if I have to bundle up, even if I have to drive into Manhattan to pay the stupid $9 congestion pricing toll or whatever it is, because I know that with what I've done so far with the podcast, with this live stream now platform that I will continue to try to grow and flourish here over the weeks, months, and God willing years down the road. But I'm looking at spring, and I understand hope springs eternal, and with the baseball season, oh, your team is 0-0, and we always have a shot, even though if you're in Pittsburgh or in Miami or in Colorado or in maybe even Anaheim, who knows, maybe they'll have a big year this year. Chances are they probably won't. But that you have the belief, or you have the feeling with spring and warmer days coming, that there's a, pun intended, spring in your step, that you feel like, all right, not to say that the year has begun on March 21st or March 20th, but you get a sense of, all right, what is the second quarter of 2025, which again, we're just now 12, 13 days away. What is that going to bring? What is that going to entail? And what does that mean to me as much as what does it mean to you in order for you to get to where you want to go? And that's the question I ask. And it can be something small, and it can be something big, something grandiose, something that you may have imagined and never thought that you'd put into fruition. So I know no comments have come up yet, but for the couple of people that are on, please, I'd love to know. I want to know. Share it back and forth. Talk about it. And by any means, not that I'm a licensed physician or someone that is, if you were to sit on the sofa, that I will have my notepad and start writing stuff. No, but I feel like I have a good sense of just outlook of what could possibly lie ahead, what we can control, what we can't control, etc. Considering that I've been embarked on this journey since February of last year, when I left corporate America to push my chips in the middle of the table and go all in on what it is that I'm doing now. And granted that, yes, I haven't recouped financially, but that goal is still going to remain. That goal is still going to be the same, to stack my chips, to stack these days, to stack these live streams, podcasts, etc. And, I'm working on some things behind the scenes when it comes to just not only navigating this landscape, but also trying to advance to a point where yours truly, the podcast, gets seen on a bigger level. And I know that once we get into April, May, when the weather is warmer, out and about more, roaming the streets, plugging here, chipping away there, that is my purpose, as well as just trying to get myself and stay healthy. To be at a certain weight, run a lot more. For those who do or do not know, I love to run. And I know I haven't done a lot of that here over the course of, we'll just say, from the start of the year. But that will change. I'm not going to say that's going to change. I'm going to try. No, that will change. But it's going to have to change sooner than later. I'm not going to wait for the first 75-degree day to go out and run. I mean, today's a perfect day to go out and do that. But full disclosure, after this, I haven't eaten, so I'm going to do that. Then I have a therapy appointment for my mental health, which I do every other Wednesday. So even if that's something that you're looking to do, share that. That's something that we get bandy about, go back and forth. And I encourage people to do so, because we all need to have that third party, to have that other person that's not a friend, family member, co-worker, you name it. And I know for me, as we now get out of winter officially and we get into spring, and knowing that there's a lot on my plate and a lot that I want to accomplish, achieve, etc., personally, professionally, it is important to have an ear or someone that you could lean to, even if you have to pay for somebody because it is something that you're going to get back tenfold as long as you're open, honest, etc. And here I am talking as if I'm a shill for mental health awareness. But you know what? Hey, it's got to be talked about. It's important. It's highly important. So that's what I'm looking at here over these next few months. And I would only hope for you guys and gals out there that you would take a little personal inventory or do a little personal audit if you haven't done so, or if that's been in your back burner to say, yeah, you know, there's things I got to tweak, or there's things I want to do, or there's things that I have on my to-do list or on my goal list that I haven't done. Start doing it. Lord knows I've been doing it for now well over a year. And my to-do list does get bigger, but I have to continue to write them down and cross them off. Because if I don't do that, what's going to get done? What's going to get accomplished? What's going to get completed? So this is one of the things that I talked about many times, even on my old live streams on Instagram. And for those who would also like for me to have the live stream on Instagram, as well as YouTube, of course, leave a comment in the section there, whether you're on live now or if you're listening and you're catching the replay here on YouTube, and you say, yeah, I'd like to see Jay Reels on Instagram, or yeah, I'd like to see him on Facebook, because I could actually broadcast this on multiple platforms, but I keep it here on YouTube because I want YouTube to grow. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. Right now, I am at 588. I'm 12 away from 600, obviously, do the math. So I'm trying to get to 1,000 to where I could start ad revenue, monetization, and earning income in that regard. And it has been a lot of work, but it's work that I've wanted. I wanted all that smoke because I knew since I was delving into this realm that it was going to take a lot. It was going to take just patience, perseverance, etc. But as long as I'm alive and breathing, I'm not going anywhere. Now, of course, I got to start generating some income because I'm just not going to go through and blow through my entire savings, etc. But thankfully, I had the luxury, live below my means, that I could go ahead and do this. That I've been able to now for well over 13 months have had the luxury to go all in on this. But there's still a ton of work that needs to be done. And again, I'm present. I'm here for it. And not only just from a professional standpoint, but personally. My mental health, well-being. Obviously, I need the nutrition. I need to sleep, rest a lot, exercise. All of those components is what's going to make this engine, this train, whether it be yours truly or these live streams or my content that I put out or the podcast, etc., that it's going to be at its all-time best, because I'm trying to get myself up there, as you well know, with some of the other big-time podcasters out there and content creators, etc. And Lord knows, I know I need to do more. I need to put out more, and I will do that. So you just got to stay tuned on all those platforms, whether it be here on YouTube at Jay Reels or Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the Jay Reels Podcast, Twitter, Jay Reels 1, just a number, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I'm looking forward to spring. I'm hoping that we get a mild spring, because over the years, I think, real quick, if I'm not mistaken, I think in 2021, the year after the pandemic, and even though we were still in the midst of the pandemic at the time, I remember that spring actually being milder than normal, because if you live in the New York metropolitan area, springs are finicky, they're fickle. As you well know, you can experience all 4 seasons in not even 1 week. You probably do it in 1 day. You know, you wake up in the morning, it's 30 degrees. Oh, man, it's cold out here. Then when you get to lunchtime, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't think I need a jacket. All right, that's fine. Then mid-afternoon, wow, I don't need a jacket at all. This is great. I got short sleeves on. Perfect. Then I commute home. Oh, it's getting a little chilly. And then at night, where's the heat? It's freezing in my apartment. So that is New York or Northeast weather in a nutshell. But I do hope that we have a very seasonal or seasonable, I guess, spring. I hope we have a lot of pleasant days. I know we're going to have a lot of rain. I know we're going to have a lot of those 50-degree, dreary, rainy days. And in fact, over the last handful of years, off the top of my head, if not last year, I think the year before, we had a Memorial Day weekend where it was 55 degrees and rain. When I grew up as a boy, Memorial Day was like 85 degrees. It was hot. It was warm. And I get it. We could talk about climate change and the effects of what the environment and how pollution and animal agriculture and all those different things, how they affected and impact that. And here I am now going into all this, but I just want to stick to spring. I just hope we have a seasonable spring. I'm not saying every day has to be 75 to 80 degrees starting April 1st. No, but can we have some consistency? Can we have it to the point where it's April 10th and it's 72 degrees? Or it's April 30th and it's 75 degrees? Or how about May 15th and it's 81 degrees? Or how about 78 degrees? I don't want it to be 71 day, 68 the next, then 82, then 57, then 68, then 54, then 79, then 62. I mean, seriously, consistency. And I understand Mother Nature, she's been impacted and affected by what has gone on here on planet Earth with all those things that I mentioned prior to, and transportation, that's part of pollution, of course. But all I got to say is that let's just hope, and we know rainy days are coming, and we get it. Ton of rainouts in baseball the first month and change of the season. But can we just have some consistency where the weather could stay where it's at and not fluctuate as much as it normally does, to where we have spring one day, then summer the next, then fall after that, and then winter after that? You're messing with our mentals, people. So let's just hope Mother Nature shows mercy on us and delivers us a very mild and seasonable spring season. So let's see. Anybody else? No comments here? Nothing else happening? Chat room? Let me see. No, that's it. All right, so let me get to my last comment here before I bid adieu. And that's the live stream next Wednesday. Now, I thought about this over the last couple of days, and now who knows what else is going to happen in sports. I understand tournament. You'll get set for the Sweet 16 a week from today. Obviously, you'll have 48 basketball games in the books by Saturday night. But I thought long and hard about this only because it's been a staple on the podcast, and I didn't want to deter, or deter's not the right word. I didn't want to maybe not all of a sudden, as I'm gathering my thoughts here, you could hear my brain working. I didn't want to take away from the podcast by not doing what I'm about to say here, because it is such a big part of the podcast. And I understand it's just one episode, so it's not as if, it's really going to upset the apple cart. But next Wednesday, and of course, live stream every Wednesday, 12 noon. But next Wednesday, I'm going to have my Major League Baseball preview, 2025. Soup to nuts. So that means break down all divisions, top storylines. I'll give you my full Met preview. As you know, I'll get into that. And if you've listened to the live stream or the podcast over the last month, I'm sure you kind of know where I'm going with that there. I'll have my predictions. Now, I'm not going to go who's going to win the American League Rookie of the Year, MVPs, Manager of the Year. No. Not going to do that. But I'll have predictions and who's going to be in the World Series, etc. So instead of having my baseball preview on the podcast, and who knows, I may extract that from the live stream and still put it on the podcast for the following day. That is still up in the air. But a week from today, 12 noon, full on Major League Baseball preview, and also over-under totals. Last year in baseball, I was 3-3, I believe. Yeah, I was 500. Not much to write home about there. And the NFL was 1-5. So, ugh. And hockey looks like it's going to be bad. And basketball could turn out to be fine, although I'm better in basketball than hockey this year when it comes to my over-under win total numbers. But you're going to get a full Major League Baseball preview next Wednesday, high noon, right here on YouTube. So please, not only mark your calendars, but set a reminder, and I'll be sure to remind everybody prior to of what's to come there on the live stream just a week from today, which will be March the 26th. So that'll do it, my good people. No comments. Let me see. Here's your chance. Any last thoughts? First time in the chat room, or first time that I've had a live stream where I have not had one comment, which is okay. It's fine. If you don't want to post anything, you just want to listen, background noise, or just a background and not music from yours truly, that's fine. Totally get it. Just knowing that the two people that are here with me, I appreciate you guys and gals. Don't want to take it for granted that it's both guys. So thank you so much for that. And again, every Wednesday, live stream, 12 o'clock. Who knows? We'll see how this is going to go on. We'll give it some more time. I may pivot and do another time. I may stick to Wednesday, but I could do another time, maybe even more prime time in the evening where people on the East Coast are at home. So again, even though this is an exercise to see whether or not that the high noon East, 9 a.m. Pacific, will it have enough traction? Will it gain enough support to where I could have these live streams at this time, or would it be better to do it at night? Leave that comment in the chat for the couple that are on there if you'd like. But I am not going anywhere with these live streams. This is now going to be a staple here for the podcast, here on my YouTube channel every Wednesday at 12 until otherwise. And of course, you'll be known well ahead of advance whether or not I'm thinking about making that change or the time frame change of this live stream. But right now, 12 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday, you're going to get me to talk about anything and everything that's happening in the wonderful world of sports. And with that being said, people, as always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the world of sports. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. I know sometimes people who are on, they may not be subscribers of the channel. If you haven't done so, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 600 and beyond. So I sincerely appreciate that. And if you want to hit me up with a question, comment, suggestion, you can, of course, leave a comment here or at the following, of course, the YouTube channel at JReels, or right here on this thread, as well as Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JReels Podcast, Twitter, JReels1, just the number, the old-fashioned way, the JReels Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. It's in the blood. It's in the DNA, as I like to say, talking sports since birth. And just having this platform to share with you guys and gals on top of the other platforms that I have, it is truly a blessing. And I am here to produce many more in the weeks, months, years to come from the good Lord up above, as long as he wants me here on this beautiful green earth of his. Although, as I mentioned before, with the pollution and things of that nature of the climate, maybe that's having an effect on whether or not we're going to be here for a long time. And we all hope to be here for a long time, not to be morbid or whatever. And if you want to hit me up with a question, comment, please do so at this following, because as you well know, as long as I'm in front of this microphone and camera, I will continue to deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JReels Podcast and this live stream always comes correct, direct, live, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South End, and the South Pacific, and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next Wednesday here on the live stream, until tomorrow on the podcast, on the foot, baby.